Thank you very much. Mr. Raghutam Rao, Chairman APRC, Mr. Harry Tall, Mr. Ashok Dasgupta, Mr. Chari, Mr. Bhattacharya, friends. There are only two things which can draw such a big crowd. One is fear and the second is greed. And I can see the fear very clearly writ on the faces of all the participants today. All of us today are very worried, afraid as to the status at which the power scenario in the country and more specifically the power scenario in AP is going. We all know that just as blood is to a man, power is to an industry. If we don't get power, the industry dies, just as blood will kill a person. The biggest effect of the IIP numbers, the industrial production numbers are coming down and all sorts of reasons are being given. But if I am to state the fact, it is just because of the shortage of power that industry is not doing well. The second biggest problem in this country today is the inflation. And the RBI is mistakenly increasing interest rates to control inflation. Today inflation is there not because of low interest rates or high demand. It is because we are just not able to produce enough because of shortage of power. The biggest threat to our competitiveness also today is the shortage of power. The effect I can see in my own unit and the units of all the people around here. What do you do when the power cut is there? You are running at 50% capacity. You cut out all the low cost customers and you increase the price to the rest of it. And that has its impact on the IIP numbers, its competitiveness, inflation and what have you. If you come to a state like Andhra Pradesh, I can't think of a state which is more better endowed than Andhra Pradesh. Historically, we have had two rivers which have had huge tidal potential in the state. We have had coal in the state which is probably second to none. And recently we have gas, which is one of the best finds in the country. But what is the situation in the state in spite of the best resources? These three reasons have been the reason for why we are in a power cut for the last 1 year plus. Since September 15th of last year, we are having effectively 50% power cut. If you look at the gas, the production, huge capacity has come, as Mr. Dhawal has just mentioned, on the basis of gas which was to be supplied by KG Basin, and we are working at less than 1/3 capacity. That has been one of the biggest blow to the power sectors in Andhra Pradesh. Coal has been a problem because we have not been able to increase the coal production, and coal which was coming from Indonesia has been stopped. Coal which was coming from Mahanadi coal fields across the state from Orissa was reduced because of the flood there. And on the hydel front, we've had a number of upstream dams which have come up in Karnataka and Maharashtra, which have reduced the availability and delayed the availability in our state. And to top it all, this year we had a drought there. So this situation is a big reason for panic. But look at the other side, the consumption. The consumption is growing with no reduction in demand, whatever the situation. We have a situation where the number of pump sets being energized on a yearly basis is creating a record year on year. We have a situation where domestic demand is growing up because of continuous increase of white goods. I put it in a nutshell when I say the cost of an AC, which used to be a 1 year's salary for a person, has come down to 1 month's salary for a person. And that is the reason why the demand in agriculture, the demand in residential will continue to go up. And in Andhra Pradesh, especially in Hyderabad, the service sector is doing very well. And that also adds to the demand. So where does that put industry, where most of us come from? That is the question which is to be asked. The cost of power in Andhra Pradesh used to be one of the lowest. It used to be around 3 rupees per unit because we used to have a load factor incentive and we used to have all sorts of benefits. within a short span of 2.5 years, the cost of power in Andhra Pradesh has almost doubled, where the effective cost without considering the DG sets is almost 6 rupees per unit today. On top of that, we are having to pay FSA. I understand the fuel surcharge adjustment has to be paid by industry for the excess cost for inputs which are used to supply power to them. But what is not fair is when the power is supplied to somebody else, why should industry pay for the excess cost of the inputs? So that is something which needs to be looked at. Diesel cost of power comes to around 15 to 18 rupees depending on various stuff. Now, coming to the matter on hand, we've recently got we have the situation, how does the distribution of power come into place? I want to spend a couple of minutes on the distribution of power. Roughly 30 to 35% of the power goes as 7 hours power to agriculture. About 8 to 9% of power goes for railways and waterworks. These two are holy cows, they cannot be touched. That takes away about 40-42% of the power. 27 to 28% of the power goes to the domestic areas. Even if you have a 4 or 5 hour power cut, since power cut in domestic cannot be in the peak hours, a 5 hour power cut with the advent of UPS will give you a hardly relief of about 10%, which comes to about 2 to 3% of the overall power shortage. So if we have an 18% power shortage, 15% out of that has to be met by industry. And given that we have 30% industrial power consumption, 15% comes to 50%. And that is where we are. What I hate to even imagine is what happens if this power shortage goes from 18% to 20 or 22 or 25% as we are forecasting in the months of March and April. My question is, I have very clearly said that these are the areas which have various areas of power. The point which I want to make is, since power is available at an expensive cost, why should all the sectors not bear the pain equally? My friend from Sanghi Industries raised exactly this point. When there is a shortage of 15% in the power, why is industry having a 50% power cut for the last 15 months? And what is the rationale for this varying degree? Yes, you can have a slight variation, but you cannot put the entire load of power cut on industry. And as been very clearly mentioned by Mr. Dhawal, that industry is the sector which is paying the power money. If you don't give power to industry, they will look at alternate sources, whether as open access, whether as alternate energy, or they close down. But what does that leave your DISCOMs to do? And what is the future of your DISCOMs? What is the future of your electricity sector in the state? Unless adequate amount of power is not given to the paying sector, which is both industry and trade. In the recent RLC measures, for the first time, the power to regulate the amount of power which is given has been taken away from the state or the DISCOM or the TRANSCO by the regulatory authority. I think this is a welcome step. Taking away the power from the government to the regulator is a very welcome step, and I hope that this step is followed through its logical conclusion. The other welcome step is that the open access has been reduced to 100 kilowatts instead of 1 megawatt. Now, for a larger consumer, it is easy for them to manage their sector in an open access with a 15 minutes balancing time. What is needed for small customers who want 100 kilowatts or 300 kilowatts or 500 kilowatts of power is one, I feel that it should be an automatic open access without having to go to SLDC. Because this is small capacity, it really doesn't have too much technical impact on the whole system. Plus, there should be a mechanism in which this 100 kilowatts to 1 megawatt open access can be done in the form of a monthly settlement rather than a 15-minute settlement. Yes, I understand that there are fiscal complications, there are complications of the finances involved because the different rates at different points of time. A particular surcharge can be thought of where a 15-minute monthly settlement can go to a monthly settlement, and the difference in charge could be charged by the DISCOM onto the entity. The idea is to ensure that small people can get the power continuously on a monthly settlement basis, and as was mentioned by a couple of people, as an expensive power. RNC measures in their true form cannot be effective unless you give an option for expensive power. In our state, we have huge amount of idle capacity which is there to produce gas. From gas is available. We need to get in a mechanism which can allow small users, especially less than 1 megawatt, to get this power on a monthly settlement basis, which can be transmitted through the DISCOM. All the small customers are very comfortable, as he mentioned. Their attachment is to the DISCOM. They know the devil. It is a devil, but we know them. So we would have a situation, good situation is the DISCOM can buy this expensive power and transmit it to the small users at cost. So this type of a scheme is a very necessary condition for successful implementation of RNC measures. So I think this has to be implemented at the fastest. Before I complete, I want to just mention a little about solar and wind. Solar power is a little more expensive, but the advantage is that it can be done at the tail end of the grid. So every substation can be attached to a 5 megawatts, 7 megawatts, 10 megawatts power plant, which will ensure that the losses are actually negative, because you don't need to transmit this power anywhere, and whatever power was being transmitted to this part will be generated at that end. And the biggest advantage of solar power is that it happens in the day, it happens when the sun is hot, so it coincides exactly with the demand of air conditioning. As we see the air conditioning demand go up, which is synchronous with the heat in the system, solar power also will be generated in the same way. So if you have a cloud burst, solar power generation will come down and the demand in the system comes down. So from that point of view, solar power is a great situation, and the solar power price, which was 18 rupees per unit, has come down to less than 8 rupees per unit. The grid has gone up from 3 to 6. If we look at the REC mechanism which is available, I think it is a great alternative, although it cannot really bridge the gap. It can start in the right direction. Coming to wind, there is a wrong concept in our powers to be that wind power is not very stable. The example of Tamil Nadu is very regularly being given that because of wind power, Tamil Nadu grid is not stable. But we have to understand that in Tamil Nadu, more than 30% power comes from wind. And you have 30 to 40% power coming from wind, and there is a sudden change in that generation pattern, you have problems in the grid. But until you reach a position which is about 10 or 12 or 15% power, I think our state can very easily take that load. And for that reason, wind power needs to be encouraged, and we can very soon get a potential 2,000 to 3,000 megawatts of wind. In the end, once again, I want to say a couple of things on the open access at the cost of repetition. Open access is being given on a monthly basis, and as Mr. Dhawal was very firm in saying that it is really a big task to get an open access permission. The suggestion which came from my friend, why not we have an open access, especially in times of RNC measures, which last until the end of the RNC measures at least. Because technical situations don't change on a month-to-month basis. If and when there is a technical change, the SNDC can come back to the consumer and say, in the next month or 1 month later, you will have a situation, so please apply again. So we need to creatively think in terms of giving open access on a regular basis. Open access for 100 kVA and up is a fantastic permission which the regulator here has allowed. However, to make it meaningful, we have to see how this can be made on a monthly settlement basis, because small consumers of energy definitely cannot control their power consumption for every 15 minutes. And a mixed open access will help them, because they can take partly open access, partly grid, in which way they can manage their loads much better. So given this, I hope a few thoughts have come into this meeting today. Thank you once again for the opportunity given to us, and I look forward to this interaction.